Well, we're only in March, and I'm not sure if cinema is going to be top this year. So Dune Part 2 is finally upon us, the long-awaited sequel to the original Dune film from 2021, and of course directed by the GOAT himself, Denis Villeneuve. I have been very much anticipating this film, not only because I like the first movie and I was looking forward to seeing the second part, but also because Denis Villeneuve, as many of you will know, is my personal favourite director of all time. I absolutely love his films. Long story short, his films are the ones that changed my life the most, and they're the films that made me realise my love for film and what films could be. So any time that there is a new Denis Villeneuve film out, it's got my attention. And Dune Part 2, based on the trailers and everything we'd heard about it, I was just like, this should be a treat, this should be good. And we are kind of in this era at the moment where we're kind of getting these big auteur directors doing these incredibly big budget kind of blockbuster movies. And with that in mind, I just thought this has got to be great. And the reviews, you know, there was definitely a lot of hyperbole in those reviews, but I was still incredibly excited. And after watching the film, I seen it a good few days ago now. I have not been able to stop thinking about it ever since. And I would like to point out, I'm not really a Dune fan per se. I've never read the books, I never watched the David Lynch film, I've never seen any of the miniseries, anything like that. My first exposure to Dune was Denis Villeneuve's 2021 adaptation. So going into this, I wasn't going into it with any kind of expectations as to how the story was going to go based on any previous adaptations or based on the book. I don't know, I've never read them. I was just going in looking forward to seeing how Denis Villeneuve was going to tie up this story based on, you know, what he'd done so far in the first film. And I have to say that even though I wouldn't class myself as a Dune fan, this is definitely the closest I think I'm ever going to be to being one, because these two films have gotten me so invested in this world and in this story. It's made me want to go and buy the books and read them, which is crazy because I'm not a reader. Like, I don't read books really. It's not something I enjoy doing, but I'm kind of tempted to go through and read them just because of how invested I am in this world and these characters so far. So talking about Part 2, I think it is important to address the story here. Obviously, this literally follows immediately after Dune Part 1. Paul is now entrenched within the Fremen. He's decided to take on their culture and try and join them. And I think that the fact that this story picks up immediately actually benefits Part 1 quite a lot. That's one thing I will come back to, but I think Dune Part 2 enhances Dune Part 1 significantly. And the fact that overall, I think this story felt way more intense than in Part 1. You know, Part 1 did a lot of setting up, and there was a lot of establishing when it came to the world and the characters and stuff, which makes sense. Part 2 goes, right, all the parts are in place, let's go. And it is this non-stop thrill ride. You know, the movie is nearly 3 hours long. It does not feel it. Like, you do not feel the runtime in this movie whatsoever. It just keeps you there, keeps your attention the entire way through. And the story, I was just so invested. I just couldn't keep my eyes off the screen, you know. I wanted to know what was going to happen, what was going to be the next step for these characters. And that's really impressive for not only a 3-hour runtime almost, but also for sort of a franchise that I don't necessarily care about. Talking about the performances in the film, we have Timothee Chalamet once again returning as Paul Atreides. I'm very hit and miss with Timothee Chalamet. Like, there are some roles that I think he's better suited to, and there are other roles that I think he's, you know, a bit miscast. And I remember when he was initially cast in Dune, I wasn't particularly happy. Mainly because, especially at that point in time, I wasn't the biggest Chalamet fan. I have to say, in Part 2, he is good in the movie. I still don't think he's necessarily, like, the best casting choice for this, and I don't mean that in the sense of I think he's poor casting for Paul Atreides. Because again, I don't know what the character's like in the books, but I don't always see him as this character. Like, I don't feel like he fully embodies it. He feels very kind of quiet and withdrawn a lot of the time, and it does get better in this movie as it goes on, because obviously Paul's arc kind of comes full circle almost. Well, compared to the first movie, certainly. But it feels like that he still isn't quite there for me. So he is very good in the movie, and he has a lot of really strong moments, but I still don't know if I fully love Timothée Chalamet as this character. But he does work in the film, he does a good job. It just feels like there's something missing, you know? And Zendaya as Chani, she is way better in this one than she was in the first movie. In the first film, she really didn't get a lot to do. Obviously, they marketed her a lot, but she wasn't really in the film much at all. Here, she has a much more expanded role, way more important, and she, at times, kind of steals the movie. Like, there's a lot of really big moments from her in this, especially Zendaya's face acting. There's a particular moment towards the end of the film where she just gives this look to Paul Atreides, and it speaks 1,000 words. It's fantastic, and I really enjoyed her character's perspective. Like, this is a non-spoiler review. I don't want to talk about any spoilers in this, but let's just say that Zendaya has a particular point of view on something that a lot of other characters in the film do not share that same point of view. And I felt like her navigating that world from her own perspective, I thought was really interesting and really well done. But the whole cast in this film are phenomenal. Like, genuinely, there is not a bad performance in here. Other particular standouts for me are Rebecca Ferguson as Lady Jessica. She is even better in this than she was in the original. Obviously, Rebecca Ferguson is just a tremendous actress, but what she does in this film as Jessica, like, she really goes for it. Like, there's a lot of really wild moments with this character. I kind of enjoyed how creepy the character was. That was interesting. So I liked her a lot in this. Also, Javier Bardem also has a much bigger role in this film than he did in the first as Stilgar. He was a great presence here. A bit more comedic than I was expecting, but it actually worked for his character. I think his role within the story, his kind of comedic moments were quite welcomed, actually. I really enjoyed them, and I think obviously Javier Bardem is a wonderful actor, and he does a great job here. And the big standout, I think, that everyone will be talking about, and everyone is talking about, is Austin Butler as Fade Rother. Fantastic. He's just great. He's really, really good. Very physical, but also he really goes for it in regards to being like this kind of creepy, kind of scary, determined villain. I have seen some people say that he's like the next Heath Ledger's Joker or something. I mean, let's settle down a little bit. Let's, not jump to many conclusions, but let's also not take away from the fact that Austin Butler delivers a fantastic performance here as Fade Rother. He's really scary. He is very, like I say, very physical performer. Like, there's this fight scene with him early on where he really is like, shows his kind of animalistic, almost beast style of fighting and acting. It also obviously comes from his own race as a Harkonnen. Like, they are very like kind of like monster-esque, and he very much embodies that. And Austin Butler's voice, like what he's able to do with his voice, it's very raspy, it's very gravelly, and I really liked that. It does kind of sound like his Elvis voice, but a bit more dark, but it's really good. It also is a pretty pitch perfect kind of impersonation of Stellan Skarsgård, who of course does return in this as the Baron. So you can tell that there's that relation there. So Austin Butler was great. I loved him in this. He wasn't in the movie as much as I thought he was going to be, but when he is there, he completely delivers, and I really loved what he did in the film. Now, one thing I will say about this film compared to the first movie is there is way more action in this. Now, it's not like necessarily wall-to-wall action, but there's a lot more action sequences throughout, and they are really well handled. Like, obviously, this is the first time that Denis Villeneuve has really done action on this scale. He's had, like, smaller scale action before, in movies like Sicario or Blade Runner 2049, or even in the first Dune. But we have like these huge, large-scale battles. Like, they are enormous. Especially if you watch the film in IMAX, which you have to watch this movie in IMAX, but seeing like the large-scale battles you have in this film with just thousands of extras, and obviously there's CGI involved as well, but it just looks tremendous. And I'm amazed at how well Denis Villeneuve was able to capture all of it, choreograph all of it. It's insane. A particular action sequence that did stand out to me is the arena fight on Gadi Prime with Austin Butler. This is his like introductory scene, and it's just really intense. It's a really awesome fight, but also visually it looks incredible. It's the scene you would have seen in the trailers with the black and white, and what I love about it is that there are a lot of directors these days that film stuff in black and white or have things in black and white purely because it looks cool, or it's almost like a snobby reason. Whereas what I love about here is it's shot in black and white, but there's an actual story reason as to why it's black and white. They talk about that on this particular day they are under a black sun, which is something that is exclusive to their planet, and you can see that, and it just reflects over the entire world. But it's not like, like I say, it's not in a snobby way, because there's certain shots when they're not in the sunlight, when the color returns. So it's really clever. It's really well done. And I loved that action scene as a whole. It really gave you a good like presence of, oh, this is what Fade Rother is about. This is how scary he's going to be. And this is how much of a threat he is to Paul Atreides. And continuing on with the visuals, Greg Fraser returns as the cinematographer here. And he just delivers God's work. This is a gorgeous movie. From like moment one. Like there's the scene that the movie opens with. It's absolutely stunning, like the whole way through. And every single shot in this movie is like a photograph. It's beautiful. I think this is probably Denis Villeneuve's best looking film, just behind Blade Runner 2049. I would love in like an alternate universe to see what these Dune movies would have looked like if Roger Deakins had done the cinematography. But that's not to take away from Greg Fraser. He's still one of the best we have, and he does a wonderful job. Absolutely wonderful job. It's just a gorgeous looking film. Like, not only do you not want to take your eyes off the screen because of how interesting it is, but just visually, it's just so entertaining for the eyes, and I loved it. Just, oh, absolutely gorgeous. And our boy Hans Zimmer returns as the composer, and like, I feel like the Dune movies, they're just collecting like so much of the best talent in the world, you know? And Hans Zimmer is my own personal favorite composer. I've seen him in concert once before. I just adore his work, and you know what he did on the first Dune was incredible. It's even better here. He steps up the game even more, truly proving why he is the best composer we have. He's just amazing. Like, the music it's euphoric. It's incredible. It adds so much to the movie, but they also know when to use it. You know, that's what's great. Like, there's so many moments when the music is there to enhance the scene, but there's a certain scene in particular towards the end of the film where they take out the music entirely, and it's just the sound, and it feels so much more impactful because you're just hearing like the pure noise of the world and what's going on in that scene, and it made it feel so much more impactful. But Hans Zimmer knows that, you know, when the music is there, it needs to hit hard, and he does that. So Hans Zimmer absolutely knocks it out of the park here. Truly some of his best work to date. Honestly, I really don't have much to complain about when it comes to Dune Part 2. I think that this is a film for the ages. It's a true cinematic experience. You have to go see this in the cinema. It's just one of those big event films that you will never be able to get the same experience with it at home or on streaming than you will in the cinema, especially in IMAX. And I'm so happy to see the film is doing well. You know, I think that this film is fantastic. It's definitely my favorite movie of the year so far. I've really enjoyed it. Is it one of the best sequels of all time? I mean, maybe. I think we'll have to see how that goes. Like, there are some people comparing this to the likes of Lord of the Rings 2 Towers or Empire Strikes Back. I'm not sure if we're quite there yet, purely for the fact that I think that Dune as a franchise is a little bit more inaccessible to the general audience. And I don't mean that in the sense that general audiences won't understand it. I just mean, you know, I think general audiences aren't quite on board with Dune yet. But this film seems to be bringing more and more people. So like I say, as time goes on, maybe this will be one of the best sequels of all time. As it stands right now, it's just a bloody great film. And I highly recommend you go watch it. Make sure you watch the first movie as well before you go see the second one. But just please go check out Dune Part 2 because you will not regret it. It will be an incredible experience for you. But please make sure you let me know your thoughts on Dune in the comment section below. How do you feel about it? Do you think it was a good conclusion? Are you a fan of Dune? And also, what is your favourite Denis Villeneuve film? Make sure you let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And stay tuned to the channel. I've actually got some more Dune/Denis Villeneuve related content coming up over the next few days. So make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of those videos from me. And I hope to see you guys again next time.